Late at night, in a silent hospital, a young nurse hears a soft whisper beside her ear. "You are still here, right?" But the terrifying truth is, that room has been empty for weeks. The patient bed number 7, which no one dares to approach, suddenly comes alive again with the steady beeping of a heart monitor. And the faint scent of lilies fills the air. The same flowers once placed by a woman who has already died. Then comes the sound of wheels. A wheelchair rolling slowly down the empty hallway. No footsteps. No one there. On that stormy night, she will uncover something that will change her life forever. One whisper, one heartbeat, and a secret belonging to a soul that never truly left. This is the story of the unsung nurse. The woman forgotten by everyone, except the dead who remembered her name. In the quiet hospital ward at night, the sound of the heart monitor beat steadily. White fluorescent light reflected off the cold, polished floor. The smell of disinfectant was sharp, bitter in her throat. Molly walked slowly down the long corridor of the nurse's wing. Her white rubber shoes tapped softly against the tiles. Outside the window, rain poured heavily. Droplets streamed down the glass like falling tears. She glanced at the patient record book. One name caught her eye. C1t, a female patient who had passed away just last month. C1t's bed was at the end of the hallway. Bed number 7. Molly remembered it clearly. She was the one who had closed C1t's eyes with her own hands. The lights in the room glowed dimly. The hum of the air conditioner filled the silence. The white curtain moved slightly, as if an unseen hand was tugging gently at the edge. Molly frowned. Her heartbeat quickened. There was something unusual in the air. She could feel eyes watching her from the dark corner of the room. She stepped closer to bed number 7. The lights flickered softly. A faint sound, like someone sighing, came from behind her. Quiet, but clear. She spun around. No one was there, but the bedsheet was creased, as if someone had just risen from the bed moments ago. A scent drifted through the air. A soft fragrance, lilies. The same kind C1t used to keep beside her pillow. Molly stood still. Her fingertips felt cold. The monitor beside the bed began to beat faster. Tick, tick, tick. She slowly reached for the machine. But before her hand could touch it, a whisper brushed past her ear. "You are still here, right?" Molly jumped, turning around quickly. No one stood behind her. But the voice lingered, not in the room, but inside her head. She swallowed hard, trying to convince herself it was exhaustion. Just a trick of her tired mind. But when her eyes shifted toward the glass mirror beside the bed, the reflection staring back wasn't hers. A woman in a patient's gown stood in the mirror. Her eyes were hollow and sad. Her lips, pale and trembling, moved slowly. "I do not want to be alone." Molly's heartbeat thundered in her ears. She took a step back. The light above her flickered violently. The room began to tremble faintly. The curtain fluttered wildly as if caught in a storm. The sound of rain outside turned into something sharper, almost like a scream. And in the far corner, at the end of the bed, a shadow began to take shape. Someone was sitting there. Molly tried to breathe. Molly stood frozen, her breathing shallow, her body trembling as the last echo of that voice faded into the empty room. The fluorescent light above her flickered one final time before settling into a steady, pale glow. Everything was quiet again, too quiet. She looked at the bed, number 7. The sheets were smooth now, untouched, perfectly aligned as if no one had ever sat there. But she knew what she had seen. She knew what she had felt. The cold, the scent, the presence. Her heart refused to calm down. She reached for the clipboard hanging at the end of the bed. The name tag was still there. C1t. Molly's eyes filled with tears again. C1t had been only 24. A kind, soft-spoken woman with a shy smile. She had been admitted 3 months ago after a terrible car accident. Molly remembered holding her hand every night, whispering softly that she would get better. But she never did. The night C1t passed away, the hospital had been full of thunder, just like tonight. Molly was on duty then, too. She remembered the moment the monitor flatlined, the thin tone slicing through the silence like a knife. No one else was there. Only her. She remembered the way Cyrilac's fingers had gripped hers, faint but desperate, right before she stopped breathing. And how Molly stayed beside her for hours after the doctors declared her gone. She had closed Cyrilac's eyes herself. She had promised, whispering through her tears, that she would never forget her. And yet, life in the hospital went on. New patients arrived. Old files were archived. The memory of Cyrilac, like so many others, became just another page in the hospital's records. Molly lowered the clipboard slowly. Her reflection in the polished metal of the equipment cart looked pale and hollow. She turned away, heading toward the nurse's station. The hallway lights were dim now, running on half power. Every step echoed down the corridor. The sound of the rain outside had become heavier, like a constant drumming against the glass walls. Her shoes squeaked on the tile floor. It was past midnight, the hour when even the machines seemed to breathe slower. She reached the nurse's desk. The logbook lay open, a pen resting across the page. She picked it up to sign the hourly report, but froze. There, on the page above her last signature, was fresh ink. A line written in small, delicate handwriting. "I am not alone." Molly's stomach twisted. She looked around the empty ward. No one, just the faint hum of the air conditioning, the beeping of distant monitors. Her mind raced. Was someone playing a cruel joke? No one else should have been in this section tonight. Only her. She forced herself to sit down, telling herself she was tired, hallucinating maybe. She needed rest. But then, a faint sound drifted from the far end of the corridor. It was the squeak of a wheelchair. Slow, uneven, rolling closer. Her eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the last set of lights. There was movement there. A shape, small and indistinct at first, gradually emerging into view. A wheelchair, and in it, someone sitting upright. Molly stood up abruptly, heart hammering against her ribs. The chair moved forward, its wheels whispering across the floor. When it reached the edge of the light, it stopped. The figure sitting in it wore a hospital gown, hair damp and hanging loosely over her shoulders. Molly's breath caught in her throat. It was Cyrilac, the same pale face, the same quiet eyes. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Instead, the air grew thick, so heavy that Molly could feel pressure against her chest. The fluorescent lights above began to hum loudly, vibrating in their sockets. The wheelchair moved again, slow but steady, until it was only a few steps away. Molly's feet refused to move. Then Cyrilac's voice came, not from her mouth, but from everywhere at once. "You promised." Molly shook her head, whispering, "I didn't forget. I never forgot." Tears spilled down her face. Her knees felt weak. "You promised," the voice repeated, louder now, echoing through the corridor like the toll of a distant bell. Molly reached out, trembling, wanting to touch her, to prove she was real, or not real at all. Her fingers brushed against cold air. Then, suddenly, warmth. The wheelchair jerked forward violently. Molly stumbled back, knocking over a tray of instruments. The sound of metal clattering across the floor broke the tension, but only for a second. When she looked up, the wheelchair was empty. Only the faint outline of watermarks remained on the floor, as if something wet had been there. Molly's hands shook as she grabbed the radio from her pocket. "Station 3 calling," she said, voice unsteady. "Is anyone awake at the front desk?" Static. Then silence. The line was dead. She placed the radio back slowly, swallowing hard. Her instincts told her to leave, to get out of that corridor, but something, some strange, heavy pull, kept her there. She turned back toward bed number 7. The door to the room was half open. Inside, the light was dim, but there was a faint movement on the bed. Her heart began to pound again. She walked closer, her steps soft, cautious. When she reached the door, she saw it clearly. The blanket on the bed was rising and falling, as if someone was breathing underneath it. Her throat went dry. She took one more step forward. "Miss Cyrilac," she whispered. The blanket stopped moving. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then, slowly, the blanket began to slide off the bed. Not falling to the floor, but being pulled down by unseen hands. Molly could feel her pulse in her temples. She tried to back away, but her heel hit the wall behind her. The blanket dropped completely now, revealing a hollow indentation on the mattress. Something invisible pressed into it, like someone sitting there again. And then, softly, a whisper came right beside her ear. "You kept your promise." Her body froze. The whisper was not angry. It was almost grateful. And in that instant, the pressure in the room vanished. The air lightened. The hum of the machines returned to normal. The storm outside began to fade. Molly stood there for a long time, her mind spinning, her heart heavy with both fear and peace. She did not know if what she had seen was real or born from exhaustion. But when she looked again at bed number 7, there was something lying on the pillow. A single white lily, fresh, fragrant, and glistening with a drop of rain. She stepped closer, gently touching the flower's petal. It was real, and beneath it, written in small, graceful handwriting, were 3 words. "Thank you, Molly." Her tears fell freely this time. She smiled weakly, whispering back into the still air. "You are not forgotten." The clock struck 3 a.m. The rain outside slowed to a soft drizzle. And somewhere, far down the silent corridor, a faint echo of a wheelchair's squeak faded into the night. Molly's breath came shallow and trembling. Her eyes stayed fixed on the shadow at the end of the bed. The darkness seemed to pulse with life, faint, slow, and deliberate. Her body refused to move, yet her instincts screamed for her to run. The shadow lifted its head. Under the faint light, a familiar face emerged, pale, calm, and sorrowful. Tirelessly. Her hair was damp, her hospital gown still torn from that final night. Her eyes were soft, but within them was something deeper. A plea, a longing, a silence that begged to be heard. Molly's lips trembled. Her voice came out as a whisper. Why are you here?" The shadow didn't answer. Instead, it rose slowly from the bed. The sound of soft footsteps echoed, though Tirelessly's feet didn't quite touch the floor. She stopped just a few steps away. Then, in that haunting stillness, she reached out a hand, translucent, fragile, and placed it over Molly's heart. A sudden warmth spread through Molly's chest. It wasn't painful, only heavy, a flood of emotions too deep for words. In that touch, she saw flashes of memory, Tirelessly smiling weakly, whispering her gratitude, her hand gripping Molly's before fading away. The images blurred into light. And then Molly understood. Tirelessly didn't come for revenge. She came for remembrance. For the simple truth that she hadn't been forgotten. Tears streamed down Molly's face. Her trembling hand lifted, resting gently on Tirelessly's cold, ghostly fingers. "You are not alone," she whispered. "Not anymore." A faint smile crossed Tirelessly's face. The room brightened. The flickering lights steadied. The air lost its chill. Tirelessly's form began to dissolve into the air, scattering like morning mist under sunlight. Her voice echoed softly, fading with grace. "Thank you for keeping your promise." And then she was gone. Only silence remained. A deep, peaceful silence that filled the room like a prayer. Molly stood still for a long while, her tears drying on her cheeks. The scent of lilies drifted through the air again, fresh, clean, alive. She glanced at the bed and saw a single white flower resting on the pillow. Its petals glistened under the sterile light, touched by what looked like a tiny drop of rain. She smiled faintly. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the weight of the night shift pressing on her. She felt light, almost free. As she walked out of the room, dawn began to spill through the hospital windows. The first rays of sunlight fell across the tiled floor, turning the white walls golden. She paused at the doorway, taking one last look at bed number 7. "Rest now," she whispered. And as the light grew brighter, the ward seemed to breathe again, calm, alive, at peace. The unsung nurse walked quietly down the corridor, her shadow long and steady under the morning sun, carrying with her a secret that only the living and the lost could ever share. That compassion never ends, and kindness can echo far beyond the edge of life itself.